Welcome to Xhibition, an Xbox podcast, episode number 16. My name is Samuel Adams, and on today's show, we're talking all about Gamescom 2021. Of course, we do cover the games with gold information for the month of September. On top of that, Assassin's Creed Odyssey has a pretty cool update that's out now if you want to dive back into the world of ancient Greece. But in terms of Gamescom 2021, there were some mixed signals going into the conference this year, especially during the first Xbox presentation that kicked everything off before opening night live. But as the week has gone on, fans have had their needs met, and so we're going to be digging more into everything shown off from Microsoft. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Gamescom 2021 kicked off with an entire Xbox presentation hosted by Paris Lilly and Kate Yeager that received mixed reviews online effectively. And I do want to say that I feel like often hosts get negatively associated with events that don't perform well or that don't meet fans' expectations. And it's always worth remembering that these hosts are just paid presenters. They are just brought on to showcase the information. They don't directly correlate with that information. And so it's not to the fault of the host that this event was lackluster. I think that Paris and Kate did a fantastic job showcasing these games, showcasing these big announcements, and really getting to interview some of the people behind the scenes making them happen. But as I said, this was not really a well-received presentation. Now, in hindsight, looking back on the week after we saw what was revealed during opening night live, everything has kind of begun to make sense. But the biggest glaring issue with the Gamescom 2021 Xbox kickoff stream is that there was no Halo Infinite. Of course, if you look at the entire layout of the week, it does make sense for them to move Halo Infinite's reveal date, or release date, I should say, to opening night live, because that's when you've got the most eyes on this show. And on top of that, we also had limited edition hardware that is coming alongside Halo Infinite. Those are monumental announcements that really need to be pushed to the front. And so, looking at the analytics, I'm sure that if you compared a independent Xbox show to what opening night live brings in terms of viewership, it was probably a no-brainer for Microsoft. But if you're looking towards the future, from the front to the future, that was a weird way to say that, but if you're trying to figure out what value the Xbox stream itself brought before opening night live, there wasn't really too much here. A lot of these announcements could have been Xbox wire post. In my opinion, the biggest piece of news from the show, and it's not really even news, but it's that Forza Horizon 5 has some badass cover cars, because I am super pumped about Forza Horizon 5. You can see some of the gameplay that they showed off here, but effectively the big takeaway is that the 2021 Ford Bronco Badlands is going to be my car of choice. No, just kidding. The big takeaway here is that Forza Horizon 5 is still coming along very well. It looks beautiful, and I need to see no more of this game. In fact, they really did not even need to bring it to this show and showcase it in the way that they did. Forza Horizon 5 already has fans excited, and I think that already, just based on the location and based on the area that the game takes place in, I consider this to be leagues beyond Forza Horizon 4 even. Now, while I loved the English countryside, if that was correct or incorrect, let me know in the comments or hit me up on Anchor or Twitter, but as compared to that countryside kind of vibe, I'm much more into the desert. I'm much more into these snow-capped mountains, these big, huge jumps that it seems like they're kind of preparing for this game. And so the Mexican skies are certainly going to be a sight for sore eyes when this game launches on November the 9th. Now, on top of that, there is also the Xbox wireless controller that is Forza Horizon 5 Limited Edition. It kind of has that transparent, translucent look to it, like a lot of the older Game Boys used to have back in the day. But on top of that, you've got this kind of splash of cotton candy, purple and blue. You've got two different style thumbsticks, and then you have the unique face pad buttons with the X, Y, A, and B all being purple and blue as well. Very colorful, in my opinion, not my cup of tea. just not great for me, just not really into it. But I love that transparent look, and so I hope that does come to other controllers in the future, perhaps during the Xbox Design Labs iterations in the future. We'll see that kind of plastic come into the mix. But it certainly is going to be very cool for a ton of people. I know that a lot have already pre-ordered this thing. So you can pick this one up for $74.99, a bit more expensive than your traditional Xbox controller, but for the look that you get, it could well be worth it for a lot of you players out there. In terms of other big announcements from the show, cloud gaming comes to Xbox Series X and Xbox One consoles this holiday season. Effectively, what this does is it allows you to use your Xbox console, whether it be new hardware or legacy hardware, to tap into the power of the cloud and play Xbox Series X games. Now, the fidelity of these experiences is not going to be up to par with the 4K 60 FPS, or even if some games push it to 120 FPS, it's not going to be on that level. It seems like they are aiming for 1080p 60 FPS according to the reveal video, and that's perfectly fine for what this is meant to do. In short, on the Series X and S, the Xbox Cloud Gaming is meant to kind of give you a preview of what you're getting into before you have to download a game. And so if you want to, say, try out 12 minutes before you invest 30 to 45 minutes trying to figure out these pointless puzzles and get super frustrated, you could do that without wasting your time. Or if you wanted to dive into Forza Horizon 5 whenever it launches, you can check it out, see if it's your cup of tea, and download it if you do want to. But that's what it is on the Xbox Series X and S. On the Xbox One, this is a fundamental shift in the way that players can experience games. On the Xbox One, this effectively makes it kind of the streaming stick that they'll eventually release. That effectively is what the Xbox One becomes, where you can, in the future, potentially play Starfield. That hasn't been confirmed, but logic leads to reason, that you would be able to play Starfield, and you will be able to play Halo Infinite, and you will be able to dive into these big Xbox Series X releases on your Xbox One. Now, it will be streaming through, obviously the cloud, so there's probably going to be a small bit of latency depending on your connection. I know there have been experiences where it has been basically one-to-one. I have forgotten that I'm even playing on the cloud, but there have also been experiences where that is certainly not the case, and I am very well aware that I'm playing on the cloud. The resolution might drop, the frame rate might drop, I could have a controller malfunction, whatever it might be. There have certainly been issues in the past with cloud gaming, but the fact of the matter is, this brings so much value to millions of Xbox One consoles and to Xbox One players around the world that haven't been able to get their hands on an Xbox Series X or S yet, whether it be a lack of production, whether it be a lack of availability online, whether it be a lack of funds from the players' side of the field. You just sometimes aren't able to get your hands on the newest hardware as soon as you'd like, and so this kind of frees you up to enjoy more next-gen experiences without necessarily having to upgrade to that next-gen experience today. But if you still want the best experience, if you still want to play everything that the next gen has to offer, you will need a next generation console, whether it be a Series X or a Series S. You will just have to get one, especially for those games, obviously, that aren't on Game Pass. But if you have Game Pass Ultimate, which again is $15 a month, you can get access to this entire cloud library. So that's something that's very cool if you're a player on the go, or in the future, if you are just looking for a way to experience more on your console. I certainly think the Xbox One is going to be the place to utilize this to its fullest potential. The Series X and S, that's a cool addition to the feature lineup, but let's not kid ourselves here. I would much rather just invest a little bit of extra time and get the highest fidelity experience from the get-go. Even if I don't really fall in love with the game, I would much prefer to see it in its full glory versus having it kind of maybe 1080p, 60 FPS upscaled, or if it's a little bit lackluster in terms of the connection, then you could have some kind of pixelation going on. I'm thinking about Hades specifically. I wasn't 100% sure that I would be into Hades. Of course, lo and behold, fell in love with the game. But on the Xbox Series X with the HDR, these colors just pop, and the art itself is so sharp that I would not want to have that experience really taken down to any degree. I want to have the best of the best. And if the game maybe was a little bit more difficult whenever I first started, something along those lines, something that turned me off from it earlier on in my experience, that combined with a lackluster appearance because of cloud gaming could have turned me off from it entirely. So that's just something that I'm considering when it comes to cloud gaming. But with that being said, still very cool for those that do jump around a lot. And with Game Pass and the nature of it itself, it really does require some experimentation. I've played plenty of games on Game Pass that I do not enjoy. One of those is 12 Minutes. Earlier this week, I dove into that one, as many people did, with Willem Dafoe and Daisy Ridley and a star-studded cast, and it just was not a good game. Just not into it at all. And so I uninstalled that one very quickly. But that could have been a good option for the cloud gaming experience. I'm rambling. With that being said, you still have these consoles that are getting cloud gaming. Very cool to see that that is a promise that is being fulfilled. Now, on top of that, scrolling through the rest of these big reveals, Dying Light 2 kicked off the entire show. The game itself looks visually pretty. I like the way that the environments look. The parkour and the movement do seem to be a bit jittery. Seems like it's still kind of a work in progress. I don't know when that build was from, but I will say that Techland is on the way for its release later this December. And on top of that, it's also going to be releasing in the same week as Halo Infinite. So I'm not sure what the crossover is like for those two groups of players, but if it's the same, they're going to be probably preoccupied. And Dying Light 2 might have to wait until the first part of the year. For me, personally, that seems to be the way that things are trending. I would consider the third biggest announcement from the show to be that Humble Games is bringing incredible indies on day one. That's according to the Xbox Wire post here. But in reality, there are 10 games that are going to be coming to Xbox Game Pass on day one. One of those is already out in Dodgeball Academia, but there are some very cool games that are coming as well. Just kind of scrolling through these, you've got Archvale, Bushiden, Chinatown Detective Agency, obviously as we said, Dodgeball Academia, Flynn, Son of Crimson, Midnight Flight Express. That's the one, that's the big one. I think I said Midnight Fight Express, thinking about Microsoft Flight Simulator. But then you had next Space Rebels, Signalis, Unpacking, and Unsighted. This is really what I love from these kind of events, are these little sizzle reels of games that are coming to Xbox Game Pass that I will be excited to play. I downloaded Dodgeball Academia. I'm saving that one for vacation next week. I think I'm going to dive in and play that one on cloud gaming with my iPhone, just because it's not really something that I feel compelled to spend time on my big screen TV. But certainly Chinatown Detective Agency is one that I am interested in. It's a cyber noir point and click adventure, blending stunning retro design with innovative mechanics. Sounds very cool to me. On top of that, Midnight Fight Express. Fight your way across the city in a brutal romp that mixes old-school brawlers and fast-paced motion-captured combat. Battle across multiple distinct handcrafted levels on foot or a variety of vehicles. Sounds very good to me. And on top of that, Signalis, I think, looks very cool. A classic survival horror experience with a unique aesthetic full of melancholic mystery. Certainly going to be checking that one out as well. But Humble Games brings some really cool stuff. They really do bring a solid presentation. And so I'm looking forward to checking these games out. That's a big boon for the Xbox Game Pass lineup itself. Now, outside of those announcements, which collectively took about 10 minutes of time, there was just a lot of fluff in this presentation. Age of Empires 4 showed its hands-on history feature, which is kind of that educational approach that a lot of games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I believe Valhalla as well. There was another one in there too that I'm missing, but Assassin's Creed takes this approach where it kind of gives you the opportunity to learn about the history that you're just kind of plowing your way through. But on top of that, Microsoft Flight Simulator is getting some major updates. You also have a Sea of Thieves Borderlands crossover that's happening right now. Then State of Decay 2 is getting its Homecoming update. So this is an interesting piece of news because effectively the original map from the first State of Decay is being added into State of Decay Decay 2 and this Homecoming update is going to be available for free to all players. Of course, State of Decay 2 also on Game Pass, so you can dive in and check that out. But Trumbull Valley is the map that's coming back. And I think that this is just kind of a clever marketing tool to kind of get players to get back in and experience State of Decay ahead of State of Decay 3, because I think that game is probably going to be out, I would say maybe next fall. That seems realistic. I would not be surprised if that got pushed back even more. But obviously, no release date has been shared right now. But with all of that being said, State of Decay 2 is getting an update that kind of entices players to come back. So I might dive in, give it a shot, see what happens. I played it a bit and wasn't too big on it. Then we saw the Wasteland 3 Colorado Collection, which includes tons of DLC, and of course also the Cult of the Holy Detonation DLC that is coming out soon. That's going to be a pretty solid piece of expansion content there for the hardcore players. Not a big Wasteland guy myself, but I've never really gone in and given it a true winner's try, the old college try. So maybe I'll check it out once more. But Crusader Kings 3 also comes to Xbox Series X and S later this year, and Stray Blade, the Gunk reemerges. We've seen a couple of little games scattered in throughout there, but overall, Xbox stream for Gamescom 2021 was, I would rate this one a 6 out of 10, probably something along those lines, just because there were plenty of big announcements that came later in the Gamescom 2021 announcement lineup, but they certainly did not start off on the strongest foot. As I said, revealing the Halo Infinite release date would have kind of given them nothing to talk about during the main showcase the following day during opening night live, but again, I suppose you have to pick your battles. However, excited for the future of Xbox, and there was more news to come in the days ahead. Now we move on to the big news. Halo Infinite launches on December the 8th. Microsoft's new Halo arrives just in time for Christmas. Of course, The Verge's Tom Warren is the one reporting on this right here, but effectively that's the big news that you need to know. The headline says it all. This is the latest possible date, in my opinion, that they could have launched this in 2021. This is the second best thing to delaying into 2022. And that's perfectly okay, because December 8th still gives people time to, go out, get this game, get it under the Christmas tree or whatever holiday you might celebrate. Go ahead and get that ready for the holiday season. I think that's the biggest piece of importance here for Microsoft, is to get this thing out in time for the holiday season, because if Halo Infinite had been delayed into 2022, that is 2 consecutive holiday seasons that Microsoft has not had a flagship game hit its deadline. And Halo is Xbox, Xbox is Halo. We've talked about this time and time again on the podcast, but it is just squeaking in there, getting here in time for Christmas. And of course, there is the Season 1 cinematic intro if you do want to check that out, just kind of giving you a look at some Spartans whooping some ass. That's effectively what this trailer actually is. Now, in terms of what all is coming as well around December the 8th, boy, you've got a pretty cool collection of accessories here with a limited edition Xbox Series X with its own stylized controller, and on top of that you have an Elite Series 2. This comes from the Xbox Wire, where they write, quote, "Today at Gamescom Opening Night Live, Xbox and 343 Industries revealed 2 limited edition pieces of hardware, Xbox Series X Halo Infinite Limited Edition Bundle and the Halo Infinite Limited Edition Elite Series 2, launching on November the 15th, 2021 in celebration of Halo's 20th anniversary. These 2 devices will be joined by additional hardware from our partners at Seagate and Razer to help us celebrate 20 years of this iconic franchise in the lead up to the launch of Halo Infinite on December the 8th of 2021. So if you want to check out this actual console itself, really good looking piece of hardware here. And I was talking to my friend at work about this, and while this is a little bit far for me, this is just a little bit too stylized. The key for me with limited edition consoles that have unique looks to them is to really take them and make them something that I don't mind having in my living room. That's the biggest key. Because I think about the red Spider-Man PS4, and while that would have been cool whenever I was 13, I'm an adult and I want my living room set up to be very elegant, to be very clean. I say that in the back of my mind. I know that I have to go do some cable management right now because it looks gross. But you understand what I'm saying. I like that black. I like that elegance. And I like something that somebody walks in and they see it's an Xbox, but it's not a child's Xbox. This is something that is a grown man's Xbox, is what I'm trying to say. But this itself looks really, really cool. It's a good looking console, good piece of hardware. And so if I could pick one up, or if I really, really wanted one, it would be something that I certainly would not mind having. And of course, I love these gold buttons. The biggest piece of news here, though, is that on top of the look of the console itself, they say, quote, "To top it off, the console powers on and off with custom Halo-themed sounds." Nice. All right, so you have some kind of Halo sound. We have not heard it yet, but I certainly am looking forward to hearing what that could be. I'm trying to figure out if it's going to be the da-da, da-da, like whatever it might be. The sounds can be switched in and out, whatever they want to do, but very cool to see that it's taking the Taco Bell style console route and giving you some kind of custom sound there. So that's exciting. Love the blue top as well. If you zoom in on the Xbox wire post, you can see there is a blue top instead of a green. So that's something that I think is a cool stylistic touch as well. Now, it is worth noting this console itself is $549.99 USD. That is because it comes with a digital copy of Halo Infinite itself, so that you're ready to go whenever the game launches on December the 8th. Now, on top of that, you have the Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2 with this Master Chief looking aesthetic to it, and I will say also, good looking piece of hardware. Very, very impressed with what I'm seeing here. A little bit expensive. If I remember correctly, this is $250. I want to make sure. I'm sorry, $199. This is coming out on November the 15th as well. For me, this is just too much for a controller. I can't really handle spending $200, but I'm not the target demographic here. This Elite controller is designed for the hardcore players, those that are really grinding day in, day out, that really want the most versatility, the most utility from their piece of hardware. And so with this, you have a nice stylized Master Chief style Xbox Elite Wireless Controller Series 2 with the back paddles and with your switchable buttons and all that good stuff. You can pre-order that now. It looks like a really, really cool piece of hardware. So, now that we look at those two pieces of hardware, you have the partner hardware. There's the Razer Kyra Pro for Xbox, which has this UNSC logo on the side of it, this green kind of scratched aesthetic, looks like some Master Chief armor, and then on top of that, you also have a Seagate hard drive if you really want to go all out. This is something that has up to 5 terabytes of storage, a pretty impressive chunk of space. Of course, you can get the 2 terabyte for 100, which is a little bit cheaper. But those are kind of the side accessories. I don't consider these to be really the main talk of the show. Does this have an underglow? Hold on now. Hold on. Pocket-sized, up to 5 terabytes of storage, shrouded in exclusive artwork, plus customizable LEDs to create an epic Halo experience. Okay, well let's talk about that. A hard drive with a LED is totally different than a hard drive without an LED. So now my perception of that product has certainly shifted in a big way. That's really, really cool. So with all of that being taken into consideration, though, these are still side pieces of news. So between the Elite Series 2 and the official special edition Halo Infinite 20th anniversary Xbox, pretty good year for hardware. But in terms of the game itself, really looking forward to it still, even after the delay of Forge and of the co-op campaign that we talked about on last week's show. And now that we have a concrete release date of December the 8th, it seems real. It seems like something that I can look forward to. And I don't think that we are going to be seeing any other big pieces of news in regards to Halo Infinite until it is officially launched. It seems like they've kind of gotten the bad news out of the way. They've brought the good news to kind of make up for the bad news, and now we're just plowing through until the release. And then the team at 343 has some work to do after the launch itself is taken care of and ready to rock. But looking forward to December the 8th. Of course, the multiplayer felt great. More test flights are on the way. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have from this year's Gamescom presentation in terms of Halo, is that I do wish there was another test flight date revealed. I would love to know when I can get back into that game, when I can get my hands back on the game, because there are plenty of betas that are coming up. You have the Battlefield 2042 betas that are coming, the Call of Duty Vanguard betas. Halo Infinite really needs to get those test flights out there to, if not test the servers and to test the experience, really just showcase the game itself and get players excited, because that's how you do it in a world where digital distribution is such a huge part of the way the players get games. Looking forward to Halo Infinite regardless of when the next test flight comes, but December the 8th is the day, and November the 15th is certainly not going to slip by without some pretty big celebrations from Team Xbox. Now here's a piece of news that I did not expect to see, and that is that Bethesda has shown off some Starfield locations you'll be visiting when this game launches next November, and the cities shown off this week include Neon, Aquila, and New Atlantis. And you can see about 50-second videos on the Bethesda YouTube channel. They're all unlisted right now, but I'll have them linked in this article from Games Radar's Ali Jones down below. But in short, it kind of digs into the lore of each of these locations. And so here you have the first, which is New Atlantis. It's a true melting pot of the many races scattered throughout the galaxy and a true reflection of the future of our world. This is your big metropolis. This is the largest faction in the game, or I should say the largest hub for the largest faction in the game. But then you have Neon, which is effectively this pleasure city, as they describe in the trailer itself, where this floating hub was created for fishermen on this planet that is entirely covered in water. And so then they discovered a fish with psychedelic properties that they turned into a drug. Now it has become kind of this floating hub for recreation. This is your Las Vegas of Starfield. Of course, I don't know if you've heard, but Las Vegas was founded after they discovered a radioactive fish. It's true, look it up, Wikipedia. But then, of course, you have Aquila, or I should say Aquila City. I believe I said that correctly. But here you have what looks to be basically an outpost, something of a Star Wars style approach here, where, of course, I'm sure there will be bandits. I'm sure there are plenty of quests to go on, but the entire city is surrounded by these giant, quote, cross between a wolf and a velociraptor, end quote, creatures that roam beyond. So this is kind of your wilderness. Now, in terms of the reveal of all three of these locations, I like the fact that they're all very diverse. You've got your big New York style city. You've got this small hub where I'm sure you're going to see a lot of transients going to and fro, a lot of adventurers that potentially have a lot of quests for you to pick up and go on if you're in the floating city of Neon. Then you also have this kind of Badlands style outpost with Aquila. So I'm really pumped by these trailers. Now, keep in mind, these are all just concept art pieces. This is not gameplay. This is just kind of talking about the lore. So don't get your hopes up here. This is not representative of the game you will be playing. But in terms of the world building, I like what I'm seeing, and I think that Bethesda could have something here. Now, this is going to be the first new IP that they've made in decades, outside of your Fallouts and outside of your Elder Scrolls and these other worlds they've made. This is going to be the first big boy in quite some time that very well could be the foundation for the next 20 years of Bethesda. It could be the next Elder Scrolls, where it does become this monumental success. Now, I don't want to set expectations too high, because that seems like something a lot of not only fans do to themselves, but developers unintentionally do. You know, we see it with Cyberpunk, and we could see it even with Halo this year. You never know how these games are going to turn out until they're in the hands of players. But Starfield is shaping up very, very well based on the story, and I'm looking forward to seeing some gameplay, hopefully sometime next year. It's that time of the month once again, my friends. September 2021's games with gold have been revealed with $99.96 in value and 4,000 in gamer score ready and waiting for you to get. You have Warhammer Chaos Bane available from September 1st through the 30th, Mulaka from September 16th to October the 15th, Zone of the Enders HD Collection available September 1st to the 15th, and Samurai Showdown 2 from the 16th of September to the 30th. Out of everything, Warhammer Chaos Bane is the standout success here. Samurai Showdown 2 is also pretty neat. I suppose it's a classic fighting game, but I think Zone of the Enders HD Collection is the one that I'll be diving into and checking out, because this is a Hideo Kojima, creator of the Metal Gear series, piece, and it comes from a space epic like no other. Pilot the orbital frame, Judy, and help the Space Force defeat the Barum forces once and for all. This title contains both Zone of the Enders and Zone of the Enders, the Second Runner, all in one collection. Again, it's included with not only your Game Pass Ultimate subscription, but also, of course, you have it with your Xbox Live Gold, if you're just a basic player still today. So dive in, give them a shot. Ultimately, as I always say, they're free games, so I can't really complain, especially since they're bundled in with the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. But not the worst month, not the best month. It is what it is. Finally, to round out today's show, if you do want to dive back into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it has a next-gen update, which is a phenomenal piece of news. Ubisoft has released the update to bring it up to glorious 60 FPS on August the 24th, so that is out now. It's got its patch version 1.6.0, and it is adding an improved frame rate when running the game on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, Ubisoft announced on Monday. It's going to be a 470 megabyte download on PlayStation 4 and 370 on Xbox One, or Xbox systems, I suppose you could say. So ultimately, dive in, give it a shot. Assassin's Creed Odyssey does world building right. Really deep game, and there is hundreds of hours of content here for you to explore. I personally did not get as into it as I did other games. I was a bigger fan of Origins, which also includes the mode we were talking about earlier, where you can learn about ancient Egypt. But I'm much more into Origins. Odyssey is good if you're into the world of Greek mythology especially, and then of course you have Valhalla, which brings you to that Viking kind of setting. So very diverse set of games that you've got here over the course of the past few Assassin's Creed games, but to see that Odyssey is getting a patch is certainly going to be a big benefit for players that do want to go back, play the entire trilogy, or I should say the newer trilogy, the Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla bundle. But on top of that, it's also going to be great for players that want to dive back in. Maybe they've spent hundreds of hours with it and they want to return and see it running at its fullest on the newest pieces of hardware. Very cool stuff, so dive in, give it a shot. That wraps up today's episode of Xhibition, an Xbox podcast. If you're new here and you enjoy the show, hit that subscribe button on YouTube or on your podcast platform of choice and get it delivered to you every single Sunday. Except for next Sunday, because I'm going out of town. I won't have access to a microphone nor a camera. I'll be on the beach reading a book, probably, maybe playing some Nintendo Switch, get a little Tetris 99 action in, or I could be diving into Psychonauts on the go with the touch controls on the iPhone. I'm kind of figuring out what I want to play, but all of that being said, I will not be here next week, but the following week we'll catch up on all of the news that is missed and make sure that we're all in the loop on everything. I'll be tan, it'll be great, looking forward to it greatly. But thanks again for watching today's show, and I'll talk to you soon. Keep on playing.